I was fired for saving a struggling young man, but what happened next will leave you speechless. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I stood frozen, my body aching with confusion and dread. It started with a loud crash, the sound echoing through the busy street, rattling my core. The world paused, and suddenly I was engulfed in chaos. There he was, a young man on the ground, trembling hands clutching his side. Blood seeping through his fingers, the deep crimson contrasting sharply with the stark white pavement. His face pale, eyes wide with fear seemed to scream for help. Time slowed, I locked eyes with him. In that moment, nothing else mattered that I rushed to him, my palms shaking, heart pounding like a war drum. "Stay with me," I shouted. The crowd's murmurs faded into a distant hum. It was just me and him. He needed me. I could hear his shallow breaths, feel the warmth of his blood on my hands, caring instincts kicked in, and I pressed my jacket against his wound, trying to stem the flow. The sirens wailed louder in the distance, but they felt like a lifetime away. "You're going to be okay," I whispered, my own voice trembling. Hope flickered then like an ember smoldering in the dark. But when the paramedics arrived, everything changed. Faces turned, whispers turned to shouts. The crowd that had once seemed muted roared back to life, filled with judgment. "Look! He's just a nobody." Someone spat. I cringed. How could they? I was saving a life. Just then, my boss emerged from the throng, his face a mask of fury. "Are you out of your mind?" He seethed, his eyes ablaze. "You think this is your job? This isn't the time for heroics." He gestured wildly, his voice cracking with rage. I could feel my stomach drop, like I was free-falling into despair. "Please, I was just trying to help." My voice felt small against the tide of accusations swirling around me. But he wasn't interested. The next words pierced me. "You're fired." The world fell silent again, the air thick and suffocating. I stumbled back, the reality crashing in. My heart sank. I had sacrificed everything for a fleeting moment of compassion, and here I was, stripped of my job, my dignity. But as I turned to the young man, I realized he had been taken away, his fate uncertain. Would he survive? I felt a knot tighten in my throat, tears welling in my eyes. And then, just as all hope seemed lost, a familiar face appeared in the crowd. It was my sister, her eyes filled with a mix of concern and pride, standing tall. There was something in her gaze, a spark of defiance, a whisper of possibility. But then she raised an eyebrow. "You stepping into trouble again, huh?" In that moment, I was caught between fear and hope. Why did I risk everything for a stranger? What would happen next? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The sun dipped low as I stood, my world unraveling, grief and humiliation twisting like blades in my chest. My sister stepped closer, concern etched across her features as she reached out, her hand brushing my arm, grounding me for the first time since the chaos. "What happened?" she asked softly, her voice a lifeline in the storm that I opened my mouth, words caught like thorns in my throat. The truth was ugly, a reality where kindness was punished, and indifference was rewarded. "I was just trying to save him," I finally murmured, my voice cracking under the weight of despair. I watched her face darken with understanding, a flicker of anger igniting in her eyes. "You're an idiot," she said, but there was no malice in her words, just a fierce protectiveness. "But you have a good heart. And that matters." In that moment, I felt something shift. Though I had lost my job, my pride, and the comfort of normalcy, I hadn't lost my sister. She would stand by me, as long as I could keep the flicker of hope alive. What do I do now? I whispered, my voice trembling as I looked into her eyes. Come home with me, she replied. Well, figure this out together. We walked side by side through shadows thickening over the street, my heart aching with uncertainty, but my mind swirling with memories of the young man, his desperate eyes still seared into my consciousness. What if he didn't make it? What if my act of compassion hadn't just cost me my job but had also led me to lose someone else's future? Back at her apartment, the familiar scent of home wrapped around me, but it didn't banish the feeling of emptiness swelling inside. I sank into the worn-out couch with a heavy sigh as my sister moved through the small kitchen, brewing herbal tea. You know, that guy may still be alive, she said lightly, attempting to lift the weight of guilt hanging over me. And you did everything you could. Her attempt to console me brought a wave of warmth, but it didn't erase the question still gnawing at my heart. But what if I was the reason he... Suddenly, a loud knock echoed through the apartment, vibrating the thin walls. My sister and I exchanged glances, confusion etched across our brows. Before I could form the courage to ask who it could be, she went to the door. I stood up instinctively, anxiety bubbling anew, but it wasn't long before she swung the door open wide. Standing there, silhouetted against the fading light, was a tall figure, the features vaguely familiar. It was the paramedic who had arrived at the scene. My breath hitched. You, I breathed, stepping forward despite the flood of emotions threatening to sweep me away. Can we talk? He asked, his voice steady yet laced with an urgency that pushed past all my defenses. My sister stepped back, curiosity flaring in her eyes, but I could only focus on the man before me. Is he? My heart raced. His name is Daniel, he said, cutting through my fears. He's in the hospital, but he's stable. Was lucky to get help in time. Relief washed over me like a torrent. I clenched my fists, the pressure in my chest loosening slightly with each word. But as I locked eyes with the paramedic again, I sensed there was more to his visit than just news that he wants to see you, he said, pausing before continuing. He asked for you specifically, and he hesitated, searching for the right words. He thinks you saved his life. My heart fluttered in my chest, confusion and exhilaration intertwined like a dance. How could a stranger, someone I had only briefly touched, feel gratitude so profound? I was still grappling with my own worthlessness, and here lay a thread of connection, woven through our shared experience. Will you go? The paramedic asked, his expression steady, demanding an answer that weighed heavily on my shoulders. My sister stood beside me, her support undeniable. I could sense her belief in me, flickering like a flame that refused to be extinguished. Yes, I replied, the resolve in my voice surprising even me. For Daniel, for the hope that had been born from that tragic day, I would go. And as the paramedic turned to lead the way, a new wave of uncertainty crashed over me. The hospital loomed ahead like a fortress, the sterile environment fraying my nerves even further. What if Daniel blamed me? What if my attempt to save him only added to his pain? But as we approached the door of his room, I felt all eyes on me, weight of expectation, of hope and fear swirling within me, pushing me forward. Then, just as I took a deep breath to enter, my phone buzzed fiercely in my pocket. I hesitated, my pulse thrumming wildly, before pulling it out. The screen glared back at me, a message from my former boss, a threat laced in his words that sent a chill through my spine. You'll regret this. Don't you dare think you'll let this go. Panic settled in my stomach like lead. Everything I had just begun to feel, the hope, the direction, came crashing down, leaving me grappling with what the future might hold. But in that moment, facing the unknown, I realized one thing: I couldn't walk away now. Not when Daniel was waiting for me. With a surge of determination, I pushed open the door, stepping into the light. And despite the shadows lurking behind me, I knew I had to face whatever followed, because this journey wasn't just about saving a life, it was about finding my own along the way. The hospital room was a stark contrast to the chaotic world I had come from. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung in the air, mingling with the quiet beeping of machines that tracked Daniel's life signs. As I entered, my hands shook slightly, the weight of all my fears clinging to me like shadows. Daniel lay in the bed, his face partially obscured by the white bandages that crisscrossed over his brow, but the familiar curve of his lips remained a small ache of hope in my chest. He was alive. The pulse monitor beeped steadily alongside the rhythm of my own racing heart. "Hey," I whispered, crossing the threshold into this new realistic world where I had done something that mattered. The paramedic who had brought me here stepped back, giving us the privacy of the moment. Daniel's eyes fluttered open slowly, searching for recognition. They locked onto mine, and for a heart-beaten infinite moment we shared an understanding that words wouldn't do justice. "You came," he murmured, his voice hoarse but filled with something deeper, something that reached into the wound of my guilt and began to stitch it up with warmth. "Of course," I replied, my throat tightening. "You scared me." He smiled weakly, and I felt something shift within my spirit. For the first time since that day, guilt loosened its iron grip, replaced by an infinitesimal sense of redemption. "I heard about what happened," he started, glancing toward the ceiling, as if seeking solace in the fluorescent lights. "What they said, it wasn't your fault, that it was my fault that you." My voice quaked as the memory rushed back, his desperation, the way he had looked at me, pleading for help. I fought against the wave of emotions threatening to topple me, desperately seeking the courage to face the truth. "No," he interrupted, his gaze sharp and urgent. "I was in a dark place. You threw me a lifeline." His words cut through the haze of regret, igniting a soft glow of hope in my chest. And in that brief moment, I could finally see the possibility of forgiveness, not just from him, but from myself. "I didn't think you would want to see me." After I hesitated, unsure how to air the tangled emotions suffocating me. He turned his head slightly, wincing at the movement. "I wanted to thank you for saving my life." How could he thank me? I felt undeserving of his gratitude, tethered still to the haunting thoughts of the consequences I faced. But as he continued to speak, I heard the tremor in his voice, the flickering spark of life that had defied the darkness. "Can I ask you something?" he said, looking deeply into my eyes, searching for something I didn't quite understand. "Of course," I replied, my heart pounding in anticipation. "Why did you risk it?" "You could have walked away," he pressed, the inquiry stretching between us, heavy with implications. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, a reminder of my choices. "Too didn't know what else to do," I stammered. "I saw you there, and it felt wrong to turn my back." "Sometimes, it's the hardest decisions that define us," he said softly, a tired wisdom in his tone. "I would have never done that for myself. You showed me that there's still good in the world." The weight of his words sent ripples of emotion coursing through me. How had a brief moment of desperation led to this? My choice had not only affected his life but had unknowingly shaped the narrative of my own, one I had feared was irreparably broken. But just then, as if the universe was conspiring to knock me back down, my phone buzzed again, a familiar ill omen. Ignoring the sensation of dread creeping back into my mind, I brought the screen up to my face, my stomach tightening at the message from my boss once more. "You will pay for this betrayal." I couldn't breathe. His threat coiled tightly around my heart. Daniel watched me closely, sensing the shift in my demeanor. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. My heart heavy, I hesitated, unsure of whether to unload my burdens in front of him. Yet in this vulnerable moment, I felt the need to share, scared that if I didn't, the moment we were sharing would fracture under the weight of my secret. "It's not just you I've had to fight for," I whispered, the shadows of fear creeping back into my mind. "I lost my job over this. My future feels." I paused, searching for the right word, uncertain. Daniel's brow furrowed as he absorbed my words. "You risked everything to help me," he said quietly. "You deserve to fight for what matters to you too." His conviction swept through me, and for the first time, I felt less adrift in my storm. He was right. I had to confront this challenge head-on, not just for myself, but also for the people who believed in me. My sister, Daniel, even the paramedic who had brought me here, they all saw something in me that I had yet to recognize myself. but then, even as courage began to bloom within me, the door swung open, and a familiar face stepped in me, former boss. "Ah, there you are," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Did you think I wouldn't find you?" My breath caught in my throat as the sudden, harsh reality invaded my moment of hope. Daniel's expression shifted to one of alarm as the personification of my worst fears loomed in the doorway, a specter of my past that threatened to overshadow the budding warmth in this room. "Get out," Daniel said fiercely, lifting himself slightly as if the fury surging within him would shield me from my former boss' presence. But I could only stare, my pulse racing at the treacherous intersection of my past and future. How had it come to this? And as I stood reeling on the precipice of chaos once more, I couldn't shake the feeling that every choice I had made was leading to a climax that would change everything. "Let's see how brave you are when the stakes get higher," my boss sneered, and in that moment, I knew this was far from over. The fluorescent lights felt unbearably bright as my former boss's presence sucked all the warmth from the room. My heart raced in my chest, pounding with an urgency that betrayed my better judgment. Daniel's protective instinct was palpable, but I felt frozen, torn between the safety of the hospital room and the looming darkness of my reality outside, for saving a life. My boss scoffed, leaning against the doorframe with an arrogance that made my stomach churn. "More like risking your career for a lost cause. That boy was lighting up your life while you threw everything away. Look where it's gotten you." "Enough." Daniel's voice erupted, fierce and defiant. It was strange to see him, fragile and bandaged, transform into my protector. That small flicker of courage within my chest began to swell. "No, it's okay," I interjected, the weight of my past shoving down on me like a boulder. "You don't need to. That's where you're wrong," Daniel insisted, his eyes blazing with determination as he shifted in his bed, each movement betraying his discomfort. "You have every right to stand up for yourself." My boss chuckled darkly, his disdain palpable. "Stand up? For what, exactly? For a kid who wasn't capable of making the right choices? For someone who put their life in your hands? You think that's the kind of heroism that gets rewarded?" The words stung, strumming the raw strings of my guilt and anger. I wanted to scream back at him, to let it all out, but instead, I found myself retreating deeper into the shadows of my own uncertainty. This wasn't just about Daniel anymore, it was about me, my choices, my worth. Daniel's voice softened, breaking through my fog of despair. "You saved me. That counts for something more than this farce." He gestured defiantly at my boss, as if willing to breach the gulf that separated our worlds. "You might not see it, but you gave me hope when I had none. That's more valuable than anything in your office." My boss's expression twisted into something malicious. "Hope doesn't pay the bills, kid. Let me remind you, lost corporate loyalty always leads to consequences. Get used to it." I swallowed hard, searching for steadiness. I didn't save Daniel to gain anything. I did it because it was the right thing to do. The tremor in my voice betrayed a mix of desperation and newfound strength. "Yes, and look where that got you," he shot back, a predatory smile curling his lips. "Get out," Daniel said again, his voice calmer yet unwavering, radiating a strength I had not known he possessed. My boss took one slow step back, a significant fraction of his power slipping away with each little defiance Daniel threw at him. "You'll regret this, both of you. This isn't over, not by a long shot." With that, he turned on his heel and strode out, leaving behind the echo of his threat and a silence thick with tension. As the door clicked shut, my shoulders dropped, and I felt the tension in the room ease just slightly, like air redistributing in a suffocating space. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice nearly lost amidst the aftermath of confrontation. "You shouldn't have had to." He cut me off, breathing deeply. "No apologies. Not now, and certainly not for standing up for yourself." He gazed at me, his eyes intense with a mix of gratitude and something deeper, an understanding of shared scars, but as I looked into his eyes, the weight of worry pressed back into my heart. My Joba life I had invested everything into was gone. How would I pay my rent, my bills? How could I find a way to start over when each step forward felt increasingly daunting? "Can I help?" he asked softly, his voice tender as if sensing my internal struggle. "What could you possibly do?" I realized then how unreasonably familiar I had become with despair, and it twisted uncomfortably. "You've helped me," he said simply. "The least I can do is support you." I shook my head slowly, unable to fully grasp the sincerity in his words. "I don't even know how to begin." For a moment, we sat in silence, the ambient sound of the hospital fading into the background. As I recounted the fragmented pieces of my life, Daniel reached for my hand. The warmth of his fingers against mine ignited something deep within, a reminder that hope still resided in unexpected places. "You'd be surprised at what you can accomplish when you feel like you have nothing left to lose," he said, a spark of determination lighting his eyes. "Let me help you find the pieces you need to build from here." But before I could respond, the door swung open again, and nurses' aides filled the room with supplies and murmurs. I felt the tension in our moment dissipate, the world around us intruding with a casualness that felt ironic given the depth of our conversation. As the staff moved about, I caught Daniel's eye, and he offered a half-smile, rekindling that flicker of hope between us. Just then, my phone chimed again, and my heart sank as I glanced at the screen. An unexpected message from an anonymous source: "Things will get worse for you if you don't know your place." My body froze, the familiar dread creeping in again, amplified now by what felt like an undercurrent of impending tension. I glanced at Daniel, who was watching me closely, his brow furrowed in concern. What was happening? All this heat of support was now threatened by another shadow looming on the horizon, tethered to the consequences of my choices. As the room filled with noise, my heart raced, fear mingling with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of a discovery that would change us both forever, but what that was remained cloaked in darkness. Each choice, each moment of courage, would soon find itself tested against a reality that we had yet to fully grasp. The fluorescent lights continued to buzz ominously, ringing in my ears like the chime of an alarm I couldn't silence. As the nurses exchanged worried glances and moved efficiently around Daniel's room, their voices blurred into a backdrop of anxiety, the tension seeming to wrap around us as tightly as the sterile sheets on his bed. I was shaking, not just from the cold of the hospital air, but from the weight of everything that had just unfolded. The threat looming over me from that anonymous message hung like a heavy fog. "What was that message about?" Daniel asked, seeing my turmoil deepen with each passing second. The genuine concern in his voice felt like a lifeline, and I clutched it, but the fear was stifling. I hesitated, focusing on the soft squeeze of his hand against mine, anchoring me to the moment. "Just someone trying to intimidate me, I guess," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant, but failing miserably as the words sliced through the fragile semblance of calm I managed to build. "Intimidate you? For what?" "Standing up for what's right?" he asked, conviction ringing in his tone, a reminder of the fight we'd just faced together. I met his gaze, the intensity between us as fierce as the storm brewing in my heart. "It's not that simple, Daniel. These people don't play fair. I can't let whatever this is interfere." I swallowed hard, the tears threatening to spill over. "I'm scared. I don't have a safety net anymore. What if I can't find another job?" Daniel's expression softened, and he lifted my fingers to his lips, an unexpected gesture that sent warmth spreading through my chest. "You will. Well, figure it out together," he said softly, his eyes searching mine, as if willing the universe to conspire in our favor. The door opened once more, shattering our moment. An older gentleman in a crisp suit emerged, his face pinched like a man who'd just swallowed something bitter. He ignored the nurses bustling around and focused solely on Daniel. "What are you doing here?" he asked briskly, tilting his head toward me as though I were an uninvited guest. An unsettling jolt raced through me, a reminder that the world outside was still very much alive and laden with judgment. "I am here to see my friend," Daniel replied defiantly, sitting up a little straighter despite the obvious discomfort. A warrior might ignore his own wounds for the sake of battle. The man's gaze flickered back to me, then to Daniel. "Your friend? You've made quite an impression, haven't you?" His voice dripped with condescension, a veiled threat lurking beneath the surface. "All this commotion, maybe you should rethink who you associate with." That familiar churn of anger mixed with contempt rose within me. But before I could muster a response, Daniel spoke louder, an ember of fierceness igniting between us. Leave her out of this. She did nothing wrong. The man raised his eyebrows in mock surprise. Oh, really? You're willing to throw your dignified future away for her? Quite the choice, Daniel. He leaned closer, his voice low and conspiratorial. I suggest you reevaluate your loyalties and who you help. The world doesn't reward foolishness. The weight of his words suffocated the room. With one pointed look, he finally turned on his heel and strode out, leaving the air thick with unspoken challenges. I could feel my heart racing, a palpable echo of dread. Do you even know who that was? Daniel's voice broke through, the tentacles of fear that coiled tightly around my chest tightening even more. Should I? I retorted, not wanting to show my turmoil. But I wished I hadn't asked. Some big shot with ties to the company I work for, someone who's been in control of how things operate for years, he said. He can make this very messy for you. The implication settled like lead in my stomach. The fight we had just started felt like it was already beginning to unravel. How can you be so sure? What can we do? My voice shuddered under the weight of emotions and fear for both of us that I don't know yet, but we've got to prepare, maybe talk to a lawyer, he said earnestly, attempting to keep the mood light as if it would ease the impending doom. But before we could map out any plans, another nurse walked in, her expression slightly startled as she assessed the tense atmosphere. Doctor's here for your checkup, Daniel, she announced, her tone bizarrely neutral, oblivious to the storm that just went through. Great, he muttered, a press of irritation evident on his face. As they began to examine him, the ambience shifted back, the stark reality of our surroundings crashing back down like relentless waves. I watched as the doctor spoke to him about recovery, and a small part of me envied Daniel's ability to handle the burden of his situation so calmly when my own life felt like it was rushing towards its inevitable collapse. As soon as they left, the atmosphere was heavy again. Despite the chaos, I found comfort in the way Daniel's clarity sliced through my confusion. What's next? I finally asked, desperation edging into my voice as I looked at him with a pleading gaze, but just as he opened his mouth to respond, his phone buzzed fiercely from the bedside table, its shrill tone abruptly pulling our focus. I watched as he glanced at his screen, his face falling instantly pale. What is it? I asked, heart racing alongside the suddenly shifting tide in the room. It's my mom, he breathed, the panic flashing in his eyes. She wants me to come home. The words shot through me like icy daggers. That's not good, is it? Daniel looked torn, his fingers trembling slightly over the phone screen. No, it means that she heard what happened, he said, swallowing hard. The shadows of unease deepened around us, resonating with an unknown but unmistakable dread. There was more to this than an emergency. A darkness loomed over everything, clinging like smoke after a fire. In that moment, as Daniel's gaze returned to mine, the connection between us felt both undeniable and fraught with peril. Daniel, we're in the middle of something. I began, but my words trailed off, as I sensed the weight of his past that had the potential to mask even the brightest moments of our present. His voice lowered, barely a whisper, but weighed heavy with importance. I can't just ignore my family. But it might not be safe. Something's not right. I need to go. I felt the world around me whirl, reality spinning towards some unseen cliff, and I grasped his hand tightly. Whatever's waiting for us when you get there, remember you're not alone. I will be right here. But the uncertainty echoed within me. As the known and the unknown collided, as I gazed into Daniel's eyes, a knot of fear twisted in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that, for every purpose we fought for, there was an unseen adversary waiting to strike at our very core. What awaited us at this crossroads could fracture everything we had built in the fragile moments of our support, and the shadows we'd faced until now were nothing in comparison to the dark secrets yet to be unveiled. The fluorescent lights continued to hum overhead, an endless reminder of the sterile environment that surrounded us. As I squeezed Daniel's hand tighter, the air felt heavier as though it were laced with unspoken fears that clung to our skin. The world outside was vast and tumultuous, while inside this small hospital room, a storm raged in our hearts. That I have to call her, Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper as he glanced at the phone again. I could see the internal struggle playing out across his features, torn between familial obligation and the dangers that seemed to shroud him like an impending thundercloud. I knew he wanted to be there for me, to help me navigate through the chaos that had suddenly engulfed my life, yet the tug of his family's needs was pulling him in a different direction. "Daniel," I said, steadiness in my voice despite my own tumultuous thoughts, "what if this call puts you in more danger? You don't know what she might say." I regretted saying it the moment the words left my lips. I hadn't meant to add to his burden, but the thought of him walking into a situation loaded with potential threats caused my heart to race. That I can't just ignore her, Claire. She's my mother. I owe her that much, at least. He looked resolute, though I could sense the quiver of uncertainty lurking beneath the surface. With a defeated sigh, he pressed the call button on his phone, and I couldn't help but dream of having the power to quiet the inevitable storm that would follow. The phone rang, each piercing sound echoing like a countdown, a reminder that some things were out of our control. "Daniel?" His mother's voice came through, a mixture of concern and urgency embedded in her tone. I couldn't hear the specifics of the conversation, but her pitch rose and fell like the tide, carrying a sense of foreboding that filtered through the air. That I watched him intently, noting the subtle shifts in his expression. His brow furrowed, lips pressed tightly together, then suddenly, his features fell slack, a shadow cast over his eyes. Whatever she was saying was infecting him with worry. It felt like the walls were closing in, and I yearned to reach out, to ease the growing chasm of tension, but I feared moving might break the spell. When he finally hung up, Daniel turned to me, his breath shaking. She's scared, Claire. She doesn't trust anyone. She wants me to come home immediately." "Home," I echoed, the word tasting foreign and bitter on my tongue. "Your father?" The possibility twisted unforgivingly in my gut. He nodded, swallowing hard. "He's been showing signs again, the kind that make our family uneasy." That I felt a pang of hurt for him, knowing the pain that lay beneath the surface. The quiet memories he carried were woven with both love and fear. "Then, you have to go." My heart clenched, each syllable feeling like a weight drowning me further. "But promise me you'll stay safe." The vulnerability in his eyes shattered something deep within me. "I don't want to leave you." His resolve faltered, trapped between duty to his family and the purpose of our shared struggle. My heart ached for both sides of him, the warrior and the unwilling son, so grounded yet so fragile. "Well, figure this out, Daniel," I promised, my voice firm even as I felt the uncertainty gnawing at the edges. "You can't fight your father alone. You need to have your family around you to reclaim whatever it is you lost." That he pushed a hand through his hair, nodding slowly as new determination ignited within him. "You're right. But I don't want this to jeopardize everything we've fought for." There was an intensity in his gaze that sparked hope amidst despair. Just then, the door creaked open, and a new nurse stepped into the room, a young woman with a soft smile that felt like a breath of fresh air. "Hi, Daniel. How are we feeling today?" Her voice was rich with kindness, and I could see the relief wash over him momentarily. "Trying to stay strong," Daniel replied, the slightest flicker of light returning to his eyes, the mundane banter allowing a moment of reprieve from the weight of his burdens. "Good. That's what I like to hear." She checked his vitals swiftly, yet her gentle demeanor was infectious, like a quiet antidote to the fierce darkness looming over us. "You know, I heard about what happened. You were very brave." As she spoke, I found myself leaning closer, drawn into the warmth of her confidence. "Bravery comes from the heart. But it's okay to be vulnerable too," she continued, not looking at me, but I felt her words wrap around my own apprehensions. Daniel caught my eye, and for a split second, the heaviness dissipated. "You're right, we can't do this alone." Just as I leaned toward hope, the atmosphere shifted again, thickened by new, disquieting thoughts. "Daniel, what if you go home, and they don't let you come back? What if we lose what we have?" The question tore from my heart, raw and bleeding with worry. "That I won't let that happen," he assured me, determination lacing his tone. "Well, stay in touch. We have to believe in something, don't we?" But even as I clung to his words, another stark realization hit me. The impending threats from my own life were still lurking just outside the door, like an impending storm on the horizon. I had contained one fight, yet I could feel the shadows of larger battles awaiting us, both the message, the company, the connections that threatened to consume everything we were fighting for. Ill fight for both of us, Daniel said, squeezing my hand tighter as if his grip could transfer some of his strength to me. But I couldn't shake the gnawing disquiet that filled the pit of my stomach as our world began to fray at the seams. If you can promise me that, I began, before a rush of footsteps interrupted our moment. The door swung open again, but this time it wasn't just a nurse. A tall figure filled the doorway, and I felt my breath hitch as recognition flooded my senses. A man connected to the very message that had thrown our lives into upheaval, the face behind the threat. Daniel, we need to talk, he said, voice smooth but underlined with an unmistakable force that sent a chill through my spine as I clung to the hope that just flickered. Whatever lay beyond that door felt ready to consume us both, and I braced myself for the confrontation, knowing that our path had only just begun to diverge into darkness. The moment the man stepped into the room, time seemed to freeze, and the buzzing fluorescent lights turned into a distant echo, amplifying the chaos brewing within me. He exuded an aura of overwhelming authority, an unwelcome reminder of the forces at play beyond our fragile sanctuary. I could see Daniel's reaction morph from confusion to apprehension, then anger as the weight of the revelation settled over us both like a heavy fog. Who are you? Daniel asked, voice laced with defiance. He squeezed my hand tighter, as if trying to anchor himself, trying to translate his resolve into something tangible amid the turbulence that enveloped us. That I am here on behalf of some people who are quite interested in your mother's situation. She's been involved in something much bigger than either of you realize, the man said, his words cutting through the air like a knife. While the abstract nature of his threat felt unreal, the twinge of fear it sparked in my chest wasn't. Get out. You have no right to disturb us, I blurted, feeling the surge of protective instincts rise from the depths of my heart. I mustered every ounce of strength to meet his cold gaze, knowing that if I was to keep Daniel safe, I couldn't be the one to cower. The man let out a chilling chuckle, one that felt more malevolent than amused. Oh, I have every right, Claire. Your connection to Daniel, your very existence places you right in the center of this mess. You should understand that by now. The way he said my name sent a shiver down my spine, as if he had invaded my privacy, rifling through corners of my life I had tried to keep hidden. What do you mean? You don't even know us. I retorted, unsure whether I was trying to convince him or myself. Perhaps it's time for a little enlightenment, he replied, stepping closer and breaking through the invisible barrier I had constructed around us. Daniel instinctively shifted toward me, his posture becoming that of a shield as he sensed the threatening encroachment. Stay away from her, he warned, his voice a low growl that reverberated with both fury and desperation. The man held up a hand dismissively, as if brushing off the threat. I'm not here to hurt either of you. I'm here to help, but you need to hear the truth. His eyes glimmered with an unsettling mix of charm and darkness, and I could see Daniel vacillating between anger and curiosity, the wheels turning as he processed this sudden twist in our reality. Help how? Daniel demanded, his tone cautious yet intrigued. What do you want from us? There's a choice to be made, he said, his voice smooth like silk yet heavy with undertones of menace. Your mother is in a precarious position, and if you want to protect her and yourself from the consequences you need to play the game. Instinctively, I turned to Daniel, searching for answers in his eyes, hoping for the spark of defiance I had seen moments earlier. Don't listen to him, Daniel. He's trying to manipulate you, I urged, but a part of me recognized the truth wrapped in those threats. The shadow of a reality I had been trying to ignore felt like it was sealing my fate, and the stakes had risen higher than I expected. That I can't just leave her, Daniel began, but the man cut him off with a sharp motion. Leaving her behind is the first step, my friend. You need to sever your ties to survive. There are forces at play that are far more dangerous than you understand. It's not just about your family, it's about something much bigger. My heart raced, feeling the floor beneath us shift from solid ground to treacherous ice. The knot of uncertainty tightened within me. What forces? What are you talking about? I asked, my voice trembling. He smirked, as if he relished my confusion. A network that thrives on weakness. They'll target your vulnerabilities and use everything against you. His gaze lowered to Daniel, a sinister understanding passing between them. And with your mother's instability, you are effectively bait. No, I whispered, shaking my head in denial. We can't. We want. Daniel looked torn, the multitude of emotions swirling in his eyes hinting at a struggle far deeper than this moment alone. What am I supposed to do? Just abandon her? Abandon everything? The man smiled, a hollow expression devoid of warmth. We're past the comfort of morality here, Daniel. Either you accept the ugly truth, or you'll find yourself standing on the edge, watching everything you care about slip into darkness. The heaviness of his words cascaded through the room, filling the air with despair. I could feel the part of me that burned with fury for Daniel begin to crack, torn between the elemental desires for family loyalty and self-preservation. The stakes of our battles loomed larger now, and there was no way to ignore the churning storm over our heads. Don't, I pleaded, gripping Daniel's hand tighter, feeling the strength slip away with every passing second. Trust him, and we risk losing everything. Just then, the nurse returned, a distraction I had desperately wished for, her radiant smile instantly cutting through the suffocating atmosphere. Guys, is everything all right? She asked, her eyes darting between each of us, sensing the tension. Leave, the man hissed, his smile fading as he backed away slightly. It was as if she had thrown a bucket of cold water onto an inferno. The nurse, unfazed, looked back at him with curiosity but held her ground. Are you here for something specific? With one last glance filled with a mix of threat and promise, he stepped back slowly from the tension-filled moment, slipping out and leaving us worldless in his wake. Daniel, talk to me, I urged, my voice thick with emotion as realization set in. The stakes were no longer just his family. They were ours. Daniel's gaze flickered toward the door, and I could see the decision wrestling within him. What if we can't go back to where we were? What if that man is right? No, I insisted fiercely, battling the anxiety gnawing at my stomach. I needed him to understand this moment didn't have to be the end. We have each other. We can't let fear decide our fate. But before I could see the glimmer of hope I longed for, the bedside phone began to blare loudly, an unexpected interruption that startled us both. Without thinking, I reached for it, and as I answered, breath hitching in anticipation, the voice on the other end sent a jolt of ice through my veins. Claire. It's happening. You need to come home now. The words lingered ominously in the air, making the ground beneath me feel like it was crumbling away, and I knew, deep in my gut, this was only the beginning of a much larger storm. I barely had a moment to process the frantic voice on the other end before panic gripped me. What do you mean it's happening? Who is this? I managed to choke out, my heart racing as I stole a glance at Daniel, whose face was a mask of concern and confusion. It's Anna, the voice replied, urgency crackling through the line. You need to come to the house. It's important. Anna? I echoed, feeling a tidal wave of emotions crash over me. My mother's best friend, the one who had been a steadfast presence during our childhood, a beacon in the relentless dark. What's going on? Is it Mom? Claire, you don't have time to waste. Hurry, please. She needs you. The line went dead before I could respond, the oppressive silence amplifying the dread pooling in my chest. Claire, what's wrong? Daniel's anxious voice pulled me back, and I felt reality close in on us, overwhelming and freezing that I swallowed, forcing the panic from my voice. It's Anna. She says I need to go home. Something's happening with my mom. I couldn't stand the thought of leaving Daniel behind, yet I felt an urgency to reach my mother, to save her before it was too late. That he stared at me with wide, pleading eyes. I'm coming with you. No, you can't. The words flew out before I could think them through. I can't risk dragging you into this. It's too dangerous. The moment I said it, I saw the hurt flicker across his face. I won't let you get involved in any more chaos. I want you safe. But I want to help. He insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. What if that man was right? What if your mother is in trouble and I could actually make a difference? I took a breath, weighed down by the burden of what lay ahead. It's not that simple, Daniel. Those people, they don't just let anyone in. I won't put you in danger because of my family's mess. I didn't want to pull him deeper into the quagmire I was wading through, Daniel faltered, his gaze dropping to the floor, and I could feel the fragile thread of our connection fraying at the edges. You think I'm weak? He murmured. His voice was thick with emotion, and I hated that my attempt to protect him only seemed to widen the chasm threatening to tear us apart. That's not it, I whispered, my heart aching at his vulnerability. You're stronger than you realize, but sometimes strength means knowing when to let go. The weight of those words settled between us, palpable and aching, that he lifted his head, and in that moment we were bound by a quiet understanding, two people grappling with their fragile realities, the shadows lurking behind us, threatening to pull us under. Claire, please, he said, his voice low and unyielding. I need to be with you. No matter what. I can't be a spectator in my own life anymore. I felt a small flicker of hope, realizing that perhaps Daniel's strength wasn't simply in physically being there, it was also in standing beside me during this tumultuous storm. Something deep in me began to thaw, revealing the truth that we were better together than apart. Okay, I whispered, surprising myself. But we need to be careful. As we hurried toward the exit, I couldn't shake the feeling that each step pulled us further into the maelstrom. The fluorescent lights hummed ominously above us, transforming the sterile corridor into a disorienting maze. The world outside felt distant, as if encased in murky glass. When we reached the car, I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaky. Just as I unlocked the door, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows of the parking lot. It was Anna, her face drawn and pale, eyes wide with fear. She rushed toward us, breathless as if she had run miles. Thank God you came, she panted. We don't have much time. What's happening? I demanded, panic lacing every word. Her eyes darted toward Daniel, reading the unspoken fear coursing between us. It's about your mother. Claire, she's tied into something that's spiraling further out of control than we ever imagined. What do you mean? I felt my heart drop. Is she in danger? Anna nodded gravely. There are people looking for her, people who won't stop until they get what they want. If they find her before we do. Her voice trailed off into chilling silence. No, I breathed, the visceral fear clenching my stomach. Not now. Anna took a step closer. You need to understand, she isn't the only one in danger. They know about you too, Claire. You need to be extra careful. Daniel stepped forward, his protective instincts soaring. What do you mean they know? What do they want? Anna hesitated, glancing at me with an expression that spoke volumes. They believe your mother has something of great value. Something that could put them in a position of power. And they'll do anything to get it. What could she possibly have? I asked, confusion swirling in my mind. That we have to go, now. Anna urged. I can explain everything on the way, but first, we have to get somewhere safe. Just then, a distant shout echoed from the entrance of the hospital. My heart raced, it felt as if the ground beneath me had turned to quicksand. Something unnameable churned in the air, a sense of danger closing in. Get in the car, I urged Daniel, trying to steady my voice even as panic surged through me. As we piled into the car, the weight of my mother's unknown troubles hung heavy in the air, and I slid behind the wheel, every muscle tensed and ready for flight. Just before I turned the key, however, I caught a glimpse of a car pulling into the load, a sleek black vehicle I recognized from previous encounters. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to Anna, whose face paled further. It's them, she said, voice trembling. The moment solidified, and I knew we had crossed a threshold. The world we entered in search of safety was rapidly dissolving. Go! Go! Daniel shouted, and as I pressed down on the accelerator, I could almost taste the fear that hung in the air, mingling with a fierce determination. The street exploded with sound as we tore away, leaving behind everything we knew, but forward, into an uncertain future filled with more questions than answers, where the weight of a secret loomed dangerously close, threatening to upend our lives at any moment. And in that very moment, the realization hit me with crushing force. We were not just running from the past, we were sprinting toward a revelation that could shatter everything I thought I understood. The hum of the engine filled the silence, melding with the pounding of my heart as we sped away from the hospital. I grasped the steering wheel with white knuckles, my pulse thrumming in time with the tires hitting the pavement. I couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted, as if shadows were closing in, suffocating and overwhelming. "You're sure they saw us?" I asked Anna, my eyes flicking to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the sleek black vehicle tailing us. "They might have," she said, her voice low but authoritative. "They're not the kind of people who give up easily. We need to find a place where they can't find us, at least for a little while." The weight of her words settled heavily on my chest. We were operating in the dark, no map to guide us through this maze of danger. "Where do we go?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Anna paused, pondering, and I could feel Daniel's anxious energy radiating from the back seat. "There's a cabin in the woods, about an hour from here. It's where your mother used to hide out when she needed to get away. It belongs to her friend, someone she trusts." Her words sparked a flicker of hope against the cascade of dread inside me. "Is it safe?" The words left my lips before I could hold them back, revealing the nagging worry that gnawed at me. "It's secluded. We can't stay long, but it could give us a moment to breathe and regroup," Anna explained. She glanced out the window, squinting at the passing lights. "It's our best option for now," I nodded, determination tightening my jaw. Without glancing back, I pressed the gas pedal hard and felt the car lurch forward, as if my urgency could somehow outrun the uncertain fate waiting for us. For a while, the only sounds were the whir of the car and the faint rustle of the wind, our collective breath hanging heavy in the air. "Do you think Mom's okay?" I finally broke the silence, fear creeping into my voice. Anna turned to me, her brow knitted in concern. "I'm doing everything I can to help find her, Claire. Your mother is strong. She's faced worse before." "Like what?" My chest tightened as I pressed for answers, desperate to uncover any shred of clarity amid the uncertainty. "The world she was involved in, it's dangerous, Claire. I never wanted to pull you into it. I always hoped." She faltered, licking her lips as if tasting the weight of her words. "I hoped you could have a normal life. Away from all of this, normal." I let out a shaky laugh, the sound hollow. "What's normal anymore, Anna? Everything feels like a lie." She looked pained, her eyes darkening with unspoken truths. "I know, but trust me on this. Your mother did what she needed to do to keep you safe. Whatever power they believed she possessed, it was a means to an end. She wanted to protect you from the very thing that's now threatening us." The car dipped slightly as I navigated a sharp turn, and I felt Daniel's hand find mine, squeezing gently, anchoring me in this storm of emotions. "She's still your mother, Claire," he said softly. "You have to believe she's fighting for you." I glanced at him, grateful for his unwavering support. In the depth of despair, his light pierced through, offering me an unexpected comfort. "You're right," I murmured back, but a fissure of doubt lingered. But what if she's in too deep? What if the secrets she kept are the very reason we're in danger? As if the universe was responding to my fears, Anna let out a sudden gasp. "Wait. I need you to pull over." I immediately jerked the wheel and pulled onto the shoulder, the gravel crunching under the tires. "What's wrong?" I asked, panic surging again that I forgot to grab something I need for the situation. "Just give me a moment." She opened the door, her silhouette quickly swallowed by the night. Daniel shifted in his seat, eyes darting. "Is she going to be okay?" His question hung in the air, a reminder that we had been thrust into this particular chaos together, our safety interwoven with Anna's trust. "Yeah," I muttered, although every instinct warned me that leaving the car was a risk we couldn't afford. I peered into the dark, heart racing as the seconds ticked by like hours, but then, a soft creak shattered the stillness, the sound sharp and alarming. My breath caught as I turned my head, looking toward the tree line. Before I could even register what was happening, Daniel leapt from his seat, suddenly alert. "Claire, we need to go." Now, I froze, confusion clouding my thoughts. What? Why, look. He pointed into the darkness, where the headlights of another vehicle suddenly pierced through the night, illuminating Anna's figure still on the side of the road. My heart raced painfully, mirroring the roar of the engine in front of us.no. I breathed, disbelief cascading through me. This wasn't happening. A horrifying realization settled over us as the vehicle came into view, a police cruiser, its lights spinning in a disorienting dance of red and blue. I threw the car into gear, fear clawing its way up my throat. They can't find us here. Just as I made the turn to follow down an unmarked path leading toward the wooded area, I glanced in my rearview mirror. The cruiser came to a halt just in front of Anna, officers spilling out, urgency etched across their faces. Anna! I screamed, my voice raw with panic. Get in, but before she could react, the officers approached her, and I felt every nerve in my body ignite with dread. The gulf between us expanded, amplifying the weight of our collective fear. I slammed my foot onto the gas, the engine roaring as I launched forward, unable to comprehend what this encounter would mean for us, what it would mean for her. Did they see her? Daniel asked, just above a whisper, glancing back at the scene we were leaving behind. That I don't know, I gasped, tears stinging my eyes. I can't lose her too. Not now. And just as the sound of distant voices echoed through the deepening night calling Anna's name, a thought halted me dead in my tracks, the chill creeping into my bones. What if Anna was hiding more than just the truth about my mother? What if she had her own secrets wrapped in darkness that could tear us all apart? I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the brink of something monumental, teetering on the edge of discovery that would shatter everything I'd ever believed. As I pressed down on the accelerator, the crunch of gravel beneath the tires felt like the beginning of an answer, a desperate plunge into chaos with no guarantee of safety or salvation. And in that chaotic sprint into the dark, one thought echoed in my mind: it was only just the beginning. The road swallowed us whole, the trees on either side towering like silent watchers as I drove into the night. The hum of the engine masked the panic clawing at my insides, but the shadows were crawling closer, whispering truths I wasn't ready to face. Every mile felt like a descent into a chaotic abyss, a world where danger and uncertainty reigned. We had left Anna behind, and in the pit of my stomach, a sense of foreboding anchored itself, heavy and suffocating. Do you think they got her? Daniel's voice trembled beside me, laced with fear, piercing through the silence that enveloped us. That I don't know, I admitted, my grip on the steering wheel tightening. I couldn't shake the thought of Anna's face, the churning anxiety within me gnawing like a wild animal. Yet, despite the tumultuous worry, Daniel's hand slipped into mine, squeezing gently as if trying to infuse his strength into me. We have to keep moving, I whispered, channeling just enough resolve to push forward. The cabin Anna spoke of came into view, nestled in the woods like a forgotten secret. An hour of racing thoughts led us to this sanctuary, steeped in shadows and whispered promises of safety. I parked, the crunch of gravel beneath our feet oddly comforting as we stepped out into the night. The air felt different here, crisper, charged with something I couldn't quite name. That we should stay alert, I murmured, scanning our surroundings with trepidation. The weight of the unknown hung heavily above us, threatening to steal the breath from my lungs once more. As we approached the door, I hesitated, casting a glance at Daniel. If anything happens, he interrupted, drawing me closer. Well, face it together this time. I promise. The sincerity in his eyes ignited something deep within, an ember of hope against the backdrop of despair. Inside, the cabin was dark and yet inviting, the faint aroma of pine creating a sense of comfort against the storm brewing outside. I switched on a small lamp, its warm glow casting timid shadows that danced along the walls, but the atmosphere remained charged with an uncertainty I couldn't shake. Do you think it's safe? I asked, peering through the dusty windows, half expecting the shadows to extend fingers that would pull me back into chaos. Safe? Not in our situation, Daniel replied, running a hand through his tousled hair. But we need a plan. We can't just wait around, we have to figure out what's happening. That I nodded, the weight of his words settling around us, intertwining with the urgency that pulsed in my veins. Right. We start by finding out what Anna knows. She must have a lead, but what if it leads us back to the danger? What if we find ourselves trapped again? he asked, a shadow passing over his face. We can't risk losing contact with each other. We need a secure way to communicate, then we will find a way. We can't let fear dictate our next steps, I said, determination bubbling up from the depths of uncertainty. My thoughts drifted, tethered to the unanswered questions about my mother, the shadows before us looming darker than ever. We must keep our lines open. That was when the power flickered above us, casting a shroud of uncertainty over the room. We shared a glance just as icy terror rolled through the valley outside, the shadows creeping in with every flash of lightning. Before I could utter another word, the door burst open. My heart leapt into my throat as Anna stumbled through, soaked and breathless, fear written all over her face. "They're coming for you," she gasped, her words slicing through the tension like a sharp blade. "Who?" Daniel and I chorused, our voices rising in unison, the gravity of the moment pulsing through the stillness of the cabin. "Just get to the back. Now!" she exclaimed, urgency drowning out her fear. I grabbed Daniel's hand, and we followed Anna into a hidden room behind a panel that swung with ease. Fear clutched my heart, but as we crossed the threshold, something deep inside warned me his moment was pivotal. Inside, space was small yet filled with dusty remnants of a life long abandoned. Anna's fear fed into the dim atmosphere, amplifying the shadows until they felt tangible, an entity threatening to ensnare us. "What is going on?" I breathed, my voice barely above a whisper, the truth lingering between us. "Why are they after us? They believe your mother holds something valuably, a secret that could unravel everything. They've uncovered pieces," Anna explained, her eyes shimmering with urgency. "They think she's on the verge of revealing truths that destroy them. We have to act fast, but what do we do?" Daniel asked, pressing against the coolness of the cabin walls, his presence both a comfort and burden at once. "First, you need to understand something. What's coming isn't just about your mother. It's about what she's tangled in," Anna cautioned, her words pulling the threads of fear tighter around us. "These people will stop at nothing to silence her, and in turn, you both." The realization landed with the weight of an anvil dropping. My mother's past wasn't just her burden anymore, it was ours, a legacy of darkness threatening to damage our futures. "What did she uncover?" I murmured, my very sense of self beginning to unravel as startling fears pierced the veil of naivety. "All paths lead to a powerful organization. They've been watching you, Claire." "Watching both of you," Anna said, her voice trembling with a gravity that pulled us deeper into uncertainty. "They'll come for you soon, then we need to warn my mom. We need to find her." I insisted, but Daniel shook his head. "We need to get organized first. We can't run blindly into danger." The night stretched endlessly, filled with the weight of truth and silence. As Anna turned to speak, the shadows outside thickened, and a low hum began to pulse in the air, a telltale sign that we weren't as alone as we thought. The revelation sunk into us wasn't just a struggle for survival. It was a frightened dance with secrets that could shatter our very essence. Voices broke through the night air, accompanied by the familiar glint of headlights wrapping around the cabin like coils of a serpent ready to strike. "They're here," Anna hissed, terror flooding her voice with urgency. "We need to go now." With hearts pounding, we looked at each other, fear and determination rife as we braced ourselves for what lay ahead. Whatever would unfold next, we needed to face it together. "Let's go," I whispered, half a question but fully a promise. The flicker of hope in my heart found roots, a burgeoning understanding that through the shadows and chaos, we could forge our own path. And just as I stepped out into the uncertain night, something shifted within, igniting the embers of fearless bravery against the unknown. That we took our first step, not merely running from the past, but forging forward into a future we would create together, even if it meant wading through fire. No longer were we just pawns in a dangerous game, we became warriors in a battle that would resonate through the echoes of our lives long before dawn arrived. And in that brutal, raw moment, one thought ignited within us: the only way to write this story was together, and together we would blaze through the darkness, illuminating the truth lurking just beyond the horizon.